Hello and welcome to Cat Context, episode 13 for October 31st, 2012. My name is Liore, and with me today, as usual, are Lindriel and Aralade. Hey guys, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot better rested since our last recording after the Extra Life Marathon.
I'm not on nearly as many drugs now, so, yeah, huge bonus.
Yeah, I feel better too. I did take a nap this afternoon too, so it's not that dissimilar from last week.
We're totally prepared. So today our main topic is going to be morality and choice in video games. And just as a warning for the folks at home, we will be giving out lots of spoilers for older games just out of necessity with the topic, but I'll try and call it out before we give away anything too critical. The idea for this topic was initially introduced by Lindriel, who was playing Spec Ops: The Line. If you look at the box art, it looks really similar to Call of Duty and other fairly straightforward shooters. So maybe to start out, Ellie, you can kind of give us a little summary of why Spec Ops: The Line is different.
Okay, well, there's been a lot said about it on the internet, so I don't think I'll be saying too much new, but if you haven't heard of it, it's essentially a shooter game that makes you feel bad about playing shooter games. Is that a fair description? I think it is. Yeah, it's actually like there's a lot of sort of deep, hard things examined, I think, in the game. You take the role of a guy who's going into Dubai after a sandstorm, and I don't know, there was a military group that went in, and nobody's heard from them. The sandstorm interrupted communications, and then when you get there, you're trying to rescue them, but it turns out that there's a lot more going on, including that a lot of those Americans have potentially gone rogue and taken over the city. So you're sort of presented early on with this change in flavor from let's go rescue our guys to I think I'm gonna have to kill my friends now. And they shoot you, and you shoot them, and it's horrible and interesting. There's a lot more going on later. It's clear that your character is suffering from the events and basically having a PTSD event, and that is hard to deal with sometimes as a player. And certainly, it is an issue that actually affects people in military situations. So the game is really about that. It's hard to call it a game, except that it's couched in, shooter sort of language.
Well, that was one of the really interesting things, and I haven't played it, but I did a lot of research in anticipation of this. But one thing that kept coming up over and over again is that Spec Ops: The Line is not fun. I think the extra credits folks kept saying unfun over and over again, and it's interesting. I mean, is that a game? If it's unfun, does a game have to be fun? Can it just make you think?
I don't think a game has to be fun. I don't know. Video games as a genre are a strange beast to me because I happen to really like the sort of interactive movie style of game. And I mean, I didn't actually think Spec Ops was unfun to play, but it's not engaging and making me want to say, oh, I'm going to go have a good time and spend 3 hours being happy. I played it in a weekend, or I don't know, it's about 10 hours long maybe. And it was very gripping. So I think that's all I really care about.
Arrow, as an established fan of BioWare games, how satisfying do you find that sort of, I mean, the black and white, it's fun, but is it satisfying to play?
Well, it depends. I mean, I've been playing these games for a really long time. Back, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, where it started out straight up Dungeons and Dragons morality. Are you, lawful good or chaotic evil? And to see the way BioWare in specific, the way their games have progressed, I was very pleased with the way Dragon Age Origins presented its morality. Because I wasn't comparing it to real life. It was more, I was comparing it to how far these games have come. Like, when you're playing Baldur's Gate, you get, 3 love interests. One of them is lawful good, one of them is neutral good, one of them is lawful evil. and you are expected to behave in those fashions. And to see how they've evolved to more subtle things, like I'm one of the few people in the world who hated Dragon Age 2, but one of the things they did was each option you had, the speech subtly changed depending on other choices that you'd made in the past.
Yeah, Dragon Age 2 is really subtle about it. It was really interesting.
That was basically the only thing I really liked about that game. It was very subtle code base. A whole lot of recording and voice acting went into that. Like, I'd started out, my character, my first playthrough, my Hawk was very aggressive. And, certain things happened, and I started picking the more diplomatic options. And even then, they were, diplomacy with force.
I like the gavel options where you basically don't use tact and just tell it like it is.
Right.
And that colored a lot of my later choices too, which was interesting.
I found occasionally in Mass Effect, until I sort of learned that to game it, where the Paragon and Renegade options usually are in the menu tree, occasionally I would do something that I thought was good and turned out to give me Renegade points, and it was a little confusing.
I think the Paragon and Renegade that's a little more, like in the Old Republic, you've got light side and dark side, period, the end. Paragon and Renegade, neither one of those is really quote-unquote, good or evil. It's delicately diplomatic or shut up, I know what's best, do what mommy says.
Yeah, which I think is actually sort of a limitation of the Mass Effect games, but every so often I'm going to be really vague because I don't think Era's finished Mass Effect 3 yet. But there are a few points. No, still haven't. For shame.
It's okay, I haven't finished Dragon Age 2 either, so...
It's not a shame thing, I can't... I only just now finished Assassin's Creed Revelations, and only because 3 is coming out on Tuesday. I'm just not ready to be done with Garrus yet.
Okay, well that's fair. But later in Mass Effect, there are some complicated decisions that you can make on things that have a huge impact on the world, and they're very nuanced. And to me, having those was really cool, but it also made the whole Paragon Renegade thing really stand out as being really sparse and kind of not that interesting.
Man, I'm sad you have to be vague, because I have no idea what you mean.
Yeah, I know what she's talking about, and I agree. It also was a big problem I had with Star Wars: The Old Republic's light side, dark side points. As much as I liked a lot of things about that game, the light side and dark side options and the default to have them shown really took a lot away from it for me. Because what I always want is to just sort of play my character as I envision them, and sort of have the consequences of their actions occur. But I felt like when there's a little bright white star or a little evil triangle, I think those were the symbols. Yeah, when I had those there, it totally made me think about, am I going to play light side or am I going to play dark side? And there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't a lot of subtlety, I think, was the real problem that I had with it.
Well, and you got screwed if your character had, a middle of the road gray morality. You were completely boned because there was a lot of gear that was dependent on your dark side or light side rating.
Yeah, I think that was a huge mistake, at least in my mind. In Dragon Age or in Mass Effect, like the Paragon and Renegade points, or I don't even know what they are in Dragon Age, but I guess it's reputation with your party members. It played out a little bit in mechanical ways, and actually Dragon Age 2 more so than Dragon Age 1, unless you scared somebody out of your party.
Well, that one you could game, too, by taking only certain people on certain quests. Like, oh my god, never take Fenris on a mage quest. Ever.
Yeah, I didn't do that so much, but absolutely you could do that. In Star Wars, I always wanted to, pick an option that sounded like the option my character would say, but I just felt so pressured into always picking one of those options when it existed.
Well, with Mass Effect, it's the Paragon and Renegade meters were independent. Whereas, with the D&D games, you had your lawful access and your morality access. But specifically in the Old Republic, the force meter is a flat 10,000 points. Anytime you get a dark side point, it takes away from your light side points. If you get a light side point, it takes away from your dark side points.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had like more than a couple hundred either way.
I prefer to those games like that to actually play it organically and make choices that I feel are appropriate for the character. But if they make it really clear on how I can game the system, I find it extremely difficult to not game the system.
Dragon Age gifts were very much like that, right? And especially if there was like that DLC pack of Valentine's Day gifts, I think it was, where you could basically like get enough gifts to get everybody to love you, but it basically let you get full friendship with everybody in Dragon Age 1.
Yeah, Origins had a finite number of gifts. I mean, it was a serious choice to figure out who wanted X thing more. But then in the Old Republic, you've got, the Auction House, or Galactic Trade Network, sorry. And you could just get infinite gifts, and it never mattered whether you were on a quest and made them mad, because you just, buy them a cheap green gift and you were good.
And there were crew skills to go out and get companion gifts and stuff like that, too.
Do you guys find that your personal morality comes in when you're playing a game? Like, I find I will start a game and be like, I'm going to be evil, and then inevitably I end up picking more good choices, because that's just sort of the way I roll. Do you take full advantage of the spectrum?
For me, it depends on the game. I mean, I've been role-playing forever. I mean, I think the first time I played D&D, I was 9. So, separating myself from my characters is really easy. But then you have things like Alistair or Garrus, and I can't make them mad at me. Alistair makes this face, and it's the worst little sad, kicked puppy face, so I try to play an asshole in Origins, and I can't do it. Because then Alistair is sad, and I am an asshole.
I didn't have that problem with Alistair.
That's because you have no heart.
One of the things I thought was really interesting, to go back to Spec Ops, was the moral choices, like, they was directed at the player. And it sort of reminded me of the inverse of that would be like Skyrim, where you can put a bucket on someone's head so they can't see you steal things, and therefore your morality stays the same.
Is that what the bucket thing is from? That's hilarious. I never played Skyrim.
Yeah, you could just put, buckets on everyone's head and then rob them blind, and they'll never know any better.
Now I want to play that game just for that.
Which is much different from a game like that, or I think Braid was the same way, where you get to the end and you're like, surprise, you're actually the bad guy. You, the player, should feel bad now.
Oh, Braid.
Braid was fun. I liked Braid.
Braid was cheap.
How do you mean?
You play for so long, and then all of it was like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Surprise!
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I don't think I would accuse Braid of having good writing overall, but I don't know. I enjoyed the actual gameplay of that one.
Okay, so I'm going to call you out here, Ellie, on something that we talked about before we started recording, which is you chose to kill some of the little sisters.
I was actually going to bring up Bioshock next, so I'm excited.
Yeah, yes, I did. I think my what I said to you before was I was trying to fight for my survival, and it was me or them at the moment. I don't know. They gave me more of the juice, so it was cool.
But you repented partway through.
I did. I started feeling bad after 3 or 4. I may have even felt bad the first time, but currency in that game was hard to come by, and I was having trouble, and I'm sure that this is part of it, right? But like, I was having trouble, and I was like, but I could buy some shiny upgrades if I just drain this, and she's like creepy, and what am I going to do? Just let her go so she can wander around this hellhole? I mean, she's better off dead in the end, really.
I really like Bioshock's take on morality, because it is a hard choice. Either you make the game easier for yourself, or harder for yourself, or you kill a little girl, who's essentially a monster, but then, it's not her fault, and they also save your life at the end, so. Did you ever play through it again and not kill any of them?
I did not, but I do know about it.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Even before I had a little girl, that's They made the sad face.
They did, and they're like so pathetic, and they're like, please don't hurt me, and I'm like, yeah, but I want your delicious juice.
But then they leave you teddy bears with presents in them.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that the first time, did I?
There you go, Steve.
And it turns out, actually, mechanically, it's interesting because I think if you don't save, or if you save all of them, I think you actually end up in the end with more of the money, with more of the currency than you do if you drain them. But it's much more backloaded than front-loaded. So it
Right. As you get more and more bears, the bears have more things in them.
Right. It's interesting. I thought it was cool. I mean, it's definitely one of those, like, here's the good choice, here's the bad choice.
It is, but I was thinking that too, but actually I think you make a really good point, Arrow, with all the different, I mean, it is sort of a good choice, bad choice situation, but there's a lot of different parts of the game that play into that. Like, it is a monster, but it's not her fault, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and you could say that about everyone in the game except Fontaine. They're all monsters, still not their fault. And, I mean, if you're shooting splicers in the face, how is that different from draining one of the little sisters? Except splicers are ugly, and little sisters are adorable.
Sure, but they have the big daddies, and the big daddies kick your ass, so, if you kill all the little girls, then there won't be any more big daddies, right?
Well, and then if you play 2, can we talk spoilers about 2? We can, because Infinite's coming out soon, right?
Yeah, do it.
2 gives you backstory for the little sisters, where all of them were kidnapped and experimented on against their will, and against the will of their parents.
Oh, man. See, now you're going to make me feel bad.
That was my point. I mean, not specifically to make you feel bad, but to talk about how you have to have all of the pieces of the story to figure out where your morality is going. Because if you don't have those pieces, if you don't have that information, then you make the choice. It's just like the real world. You make the choice with the information that you have.
Right, absolutely. And that actually segues back to something about Star Wars that Talon and I were talking about earlier. She's frustrated by the way that the light side and dark side choices are sort of presented knowing the outcome, I guess. And I think the problem is mostly that in that sort of game, you know that you're not going to destroy the world by making the quote-unquote wrong choice or dark side choice, or the risky choice isn't necessarily going to have the downside that is presented. It just skews the sort of actual morality decision involved, right? And I think that that's similar to the little girls too. I mean, like, do you deal with them now or do you deal with them later? And I didn't know, maybe they came back as like horrible, horrible witches at the end.
That's a good point about the Star Wars stuff too, because if you know that there's going to be no consequences for your decision, then there's no impetus, as opposed to the aforementioned decision at near the end of Mass Effect 3, where, there are going to be consequences to your choices. So it took me like half an hour to figure out what to do.
I guess because it was an MMO, they didn't want to have, consequences for everything. But, comparing the light side and dark side choice would be better, kill the robot and all of everyone around it, or you have to wait for the robot to fire on X thing and then you can kill just the robot. I mean, that would be a more valid morality choice other than this thing is obviously good and this thing is obviously evil. Because it's not really the way the dark side works in the source material. It's not about evil.
Right, it's about passion and about power and stuff like that, rather than being evil.
And order versus chaos.
Right, and actually, even romance is considered a dark side choice in the Star Wars world. And there is a Jedi quest line about that, which is kind of interesting because it presents something sort of more gray area-ish. Do you follow the rules? Do you turn in these people who are having a Jedi training academy romance or not?
Yeah, even on that quest, I think that's on the starting planet.
Yeah, it is.
They kind of hedge their bets because the woman involved in the relationship is a horrible, horrible person.
Yeah, I know. And they're doing other stuff that like makes it, easier to turn them in.
Right, and it's unfortunate. I think they could have done so much better.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the larger point of is there two choices, right? Or is the whole question of morality and those sorts of things really a spectrum, which it obviously is. Or obviously to me it is.
So I guess overall we're cool with games where we're not the hero that might be technically unfun.
Yeah, I want more, honestly. I want more narrative experiences, whether I'm the hero or not. I don't know, I want my games to tell stories and tell interesting stories. That's the best way to keep me playing.
I'm with Ellie on this. I don't really care if I'm playing the hero or whatever, as long as it's an interesting story.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hopefully the industry keeps going with that, because I think there's a lot of, we're going to make you the hero, go forth and be awesome.
I think it's certainly a riskier proposition, right, to play something outside of the sort of standards. But I think the industry is big enough. I mean, there's a lot of fucking games that come out every year. Way more than any of us can play. So, as a consumer, not every game has to be the number one seller for the year, right? And I recognize that as a developer or as a big name studio, it's a lot harder to make that case. But even for those studios, they're coming out with multiple games every year. One of them's going to be the bigger seller, and one of them's, the vast majority are not. So why not take some of those games and tell interesting stories and let people who want to say something say it, and save your money-making propositions for the money-making propositions. There's room for lots of kinds of movies. Why not video games?
So let's talk a little bit about what else we're playing, and then we will answer our one question that we forgot to answer last week.
I actually started a new playthrough of Mass Effect 3 rather than finish it, because I'm never going to finish it. Finally finished the third part of Assassin's Creed 2 in preparation for Assassin's Creed 3. So excited. And still playing some Guild Wars 2. No, that's about it.
Were they pets? The little pirate and ghost doohickeys?
Oh my god, they're so cute. Jesus Christ. They have tiny little kid NPCs running around Guild Wars 2. Little, the anthropomorphic whale sharks called the Quaggins. And it's, one of them is wearing a pirate costume. He's got a little eye patch, and you click on him to talk to him, and he asks you to give him some candy. One of the Halloween currency is candy corn. And you have to give him candy corn. And he says, "Twick or tweet, Quaggin is pie-witting you!" And oh my god.
Oh my god.
I'm not made of stone, you guys. I can't.
Yeah, that's amazing. The little ghost one looks awesome too. It looks like it's about to fall over all the time.
Yes, he trips and falls every now and then. The Halloween event has been very interesting. There are lots of really clever decorative things, but the big draw has been this a special jumping puzzle. That's one of the big things in Guild Wars is jumping puzzles. And this one, oh my god, the area as a whole can just eat a giant bowl of dicks. It's so terrible. Not only is it timed, everyone is running at once, and they're giant, huge cat bull people that you can't see around, and giant Norn that you can't see around, and your own personal giant shoulders that you can't see around. No idea where the edges are, and it goes really fast, and it just, it's terrible. And every time someone makes a post or whatever about, "Oh, I finally finished it on my 4th character, it's so easy and fun," I want to kill myself.
Is there collision in Guild Wars? Because that would make that even better.
I don't think there is, but it certainly feels like it. I mean, I can tell, I'm sure, I'm absolutely positive, at least more than once, my spouse has knocked me off a ledge.
Did you ever play the new Super Mario Brothers for the Wii? Where you could have
the divorce
4
game
people on the screen at one. Yeah, that one. That's what it reminds me of.
We were so excited to play it, and we were going to play it at a party, and it was going to be a big family game, and it was going to be so fun. Oh my god, one night, we slept on opposite sides of the couch, never touched it again.
That's awesome.
It's Divorce Mario, yeah.
How about you, Ellie? What else you been playing?
I've been playing Rift, some. I'm actually sort of in that like pre-expansion funk where I have a big list of things I want to do, but I also can't really bring myself to do them. That's fine. I play it a bit and still trying to figure out, which specs I like and which specs I don't like and changes. I've been playing Borderlands. I started the DLC finally today. That was pretty fun so far. There's like this really, really crazy guy who has mannequins that he put microphones in and talks to you through like their different characters.
That sounds pretty terrifying.
It's really freaky. I actually played the Hawken beta a little bit, and I think it's not under NDA. I should verify that before you cut this in or out. It was fun. I couldn't figure it out really, but I only played it for, I don't know, a half hour. It seemed fun.
I have mostly been doing, there's a event going on in Rift where there's instant adventures in everyone's capital city, and basically it's a huge rain of experience points down upon us all who are trying to get alts up before the expansion, so I've been doing a lot of that. But otherwise, I haven't really had a lot of time to play, but I have been watching a Let's Play of Heavy Rain because you keep talking about it, Ellie, and I love those kind of story games.
Yeah, that game's really fun.
It is pretty fun to watch. It is pretty quick timing. I'm kind of amused every so often there's the parts of it where, I don't know, you have to do quick time events to like change a baby's diaper and stuff, and just sort of seeing the mundane in the gameplay.
I tell you what, if I could quick time change a diaper, all I had to do was like hit B at the right time, my life would be much better.
Yeah. We had an experience where your kid's over and he's hungry and like it's after school, but you're kind of depressed. And he's like, I'm hungry. Can you make me some dinner? And then like you only have a certain amount of time to like make him dinner before it's like midnight and he has to go to sleep. And then you like kept him up too late and he's going to fail out of school and goes to bed without dinner if you like don't do it in time. That was like, I don't know. It made me feel like a bad person just watching it, honestly. I can't even feed my fucking kid. It's a brutal, depressing game, but it was actually an awesome experience.
Yeah, it does transfer really well to the whole Let's Play concept. Okay, we are going to try and start doing mailbag. We'll come up with a catchier name for that, but questions from people. And we're giving away beta keys every week for people who send in questions. So send in your questions to podcast@lioreblog.com. This week we have a question from Daniel, who received a beta key for PlanetSide 2 in return for this. And Daniel asks, do you think gamers will interact with each other in PlanetSide 2 like they do in Call of Duty, where you might say, there's a guy up there? Or will it be more like an MMO with strategic plans within your squad using more militaristic voice comms?
I can't imagine there being big, long, planned talking in anything that moves as fast as Call of Duty.
In my minimal time that I played the PlanetSide 2 beta, there's really not a lot of time between something shooting me and having to plan something. I think it's going to be a little bit more on the fly.
I think that, I don't know, my current experience with the PlanetSide 2 beta is standing around in the initial spawn chamber, getting grenaded by a teammate while I was trying to set my key bindings up, teleporting somewhere where I didn't know where I was, walking out the door, getting shot in the face by a tank, and then repeating the shot in the face by a tank about 20 times before I finally rocket launched it to death, and then stopping playing. So, if that's any indication, I don't think there's enough time to talk. I hope that there will be, because like squad-based tactics seem interesting and actually kind of lend themselves to the sort of military quick ways of communicating like important information. But I'm also not a huge Call of Duty player, so I have no idea. I mean, my expectation from Call of Duty is being called a cock muncher by a 13-year-old, so I don't know. Is there more communication than that?
Not really.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I have to say, as a longtime MMO player, though, if there actually is like strategic, you're running it sort of like a raid, only it's on other players, that would be extremely appealing to me. Yeah,
I mean, I expect that people will sort of organize themselves into teams and squads that like have a particular fighting style. I mean, like, you'll get a sniper squad and you'll go off and find places to hide out and call out targets and stuff like that. And then probably have some ground support for that.
We're still working on the not getting shot side of it.
Yeah, seriously. I think I could probably, like, find the time to, like, run up onto a hill, but then I'd, like, be on a hill with nobody else around, and I don't know what I would do at that point. I'm not nearly patient enough to, like, sit on a hill and actually wait for targets and snipe them.
So maybe playing a sniper is just not for you.
But I like sniping people, too. I don't know.
So basically you're Garrus, is what you're saying.
Oh, I'm a better shot than Garrus, whatever. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I also have spent a lot of time playing Counter-Strike in my day. There was a lot of communication in that. It just happened to be quick and, yeah, but you could get a lot of information across in a couple syllables. And I think that a language will develop around PlanetSide. I'm sure that does the same sort of thing.
I know in TF2 as well, they have certain calls, hotkeyed, so you can have your character shout out there's a spy or something, which a lot of people use. So you can send your questions or comments, and we will give excellent professional answers like that to podcast@lioreblog.com. Next week, we're going to be giving away a beta key to Paradox's new real-time strategy game, Starvoid, to someone who sends us in a question, so go for it. So I think that's it for this episode of Cat Context. Ellie and Arrow, thank you very much for coming by and chatting about some serious video game business.
Serious business is what we're about.
Every day, all day.
We'll be back in 2 weeks on approximately November 11th, and the big focus of that episode will, of course, be Rift's Storm Legion expansion, which is like the episode I have been waiting 6 months to do.
And I'll just sit and twiddle my thumbs while you guys talk about how cool it is.
We can regale Arrow with incredibly boring tales of our dwarves.
It's cool. You listened when I talked about how cute baby Quaggan are, so.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and regular RSS. Check out the website at lioreblog.com. That's Liore blog.com, and click on podcast in the main menu. So until next time, thanks for listening and keep on playing. See you later.